Welcome to Infinite Models. If you like building aircraft, any type of armor, how about prehistoric or current wildlife? Autos of all shapes and sizes and genres, seafaring subjects of all types, and figures, vignettes, and dioramas, then this group was made for you.
I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Ed Cobley. I used to be an F4 Phantom driver. I was stationed in Udon, Thailand. And I want to tell you a quick story about one of the most interesting functional check flights I ever made in my life. Sitting at the end of the runway, I reached up and punched the stem on the stopwatch. It was time to punch in the clock and go to work. I released the brakes, pushed the big throttles up into afterburner, hold the nose wheel steering button down, and we are rolling. Pulled the stick back. We're headed down the runway. The Phantom, which was just recently straining nose down against the brakes at full military power, is now anxious to shed itself at the ground. Twin afterburners, they torch off like a kick in the arse. Thrust is reporting for duty. A quick check of the exhaust temperatures and the nozzles are fully open. No warning lights. We are clear and headed down the runway. Speed starts building rather quickly now. Blue afterburner flames sticking out the back end of my airplane as the J-79 engines are howling, rolling down the flight line. For once, this airplane is light. No tanks, no missiles, no ECM pods. Heck, not even an underwing stores rack left empty. The bottom of this airplane is smooth as a baby's bottom. We're about to go hop and do a check flight. It's a test hop. After major maintenance events like that, the aircraft needs to be tested to make sure that it can be returned fully to service. I've got Jack in the back seat. Jack loves, just like I do, going on these functional check flights because unlike combat, there's nobody shooting at us, and we can fly just about any regime we want. We're limited to only one combat mission per day, but as one of the few functional check flight certified pilots in the squadron, I do one of these every chance I get. They're just plain fun to do. At 150 knots, the nose on the airplane starts to rise up. Lift is starting to overcome gravity. Not long after that, we leave the ground. The thump of the wheels on the flight line has ended. I slap the wheel up gear on one side of the cockpit and I reach over and pull up the flaps with a small yellow lever on the left side of the cockpit. Push the nose down. The airplane is gaining speed, but the whole time it wants to go nose up. It's just a natural part of what this airplane does. But I have to keep it down. I'm pushing nose trim down. I'm keeping it about 100 feet, and speed is starting to really come rapidly now. I crest through 400 knots, 425, 450. It's time to let the nose do what that nose wants to do. I stop the forward pressure, and it comes up through that dusty horizon. Pretty soon we're at 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. The weight that was on my ass sitting on the cushion in this ejection seat and that of Jack in the back seat has just transferred to our spine sitting against the metal of the back of the ejection seats. We are climbing straight up like a homesick angel. A green and brown homesick angel, to be sure, with a giant blue flame flying from its rear. Why do I depart like that, going straight up? Heck, why does a dog lick himself? Probably because he can. Yeah, it's fun. We just throw it nose up, and I am now climbing straight up out of the sky. It's given all the ground guys a show. You know, those guys, they spend all day in the heat in Thailand, the sweat, fixing these airplanes through the monsoons, day and night. The crew chiefs, the mechanics, the ground crew, We call them the phantom fixers. Those guys bust their arse. They never really get to see just what their charges can do. They watch them take off every day and head northeast. They're gone for 1, 2, sometimes 3 hours. And more often than not, those planes return. Wings are now empty. All the ordnance expended, drop tanks are dropped. And invariably, a number of them come back with some kind of damage. Something is broke. Something's been shot up. Something's been punched by shrapnel from proximity warheads. And all that means is those guys have to fix them. Again, they never really get to see just the raw power and performance in the Phantom. But they do today. And that's why I do this on a functional check flight, and every other pilot that's qualified to do them does it too. So the boys on the ground that keep us in the air can see just what their charge can do. 20,000 feet comes rapidly, 30,000. Out of sight of the airfield, I go ahead and tip the nose over a little bit because the air is getting thinner. Thrust is a little lower. Keeping my rate of climb that high, virtually impossible here. So I tip the nose over to maintain a pretty good rate of climb. I continue up, passing through 40,000 feet. That's about the maximum air altitude of most commercial aircraft. 45,000 feet. That's the maximum height of any of the World War II pressurized cabin prop-driven fighters, even the F-86 Sabres of the Korean War era. 50,000 feet. I level off. We're flying along. I'm still in full afterburner, gaining speed like crazy. You know, Einstein once said that speed is relative, and he's right. Here, with no reference to anything on the ground, no clouds around, no other plane in the sky, we feel like it's motionless. There's no sensation of speed whatsoever. We're just stuck in this space-time continuum. Only the sound of the engines and the howling of the wind outside give any indication of the speed we've got going whatsoever. So I'm looking down at my Mach meter, not much else to do at this point. I know we're gaining speed. I'm watching that Mach meter climb. Right now it reads 0.9 Mach, 9/10 of the way to the speed of sound. Keeping my eye on that Mach meter, I'll watch it climb 0.93, 0.95, 0.97. Then it seems to freeze for a second before it hops right over to 1.0. We are now supersonic and accelerating. Those maniacal J-79s will not be denied. We continue to thrust our way across the sky, no sensation of speed. The flight characteristics on the Phantom really change when you get supersonic, however. Shock cones are attached to the nose and to the tail. The flight controls get heavy, almost unresponsive. The stabilators that were getting us in all of our direction become heavy and barely really move the airplane around. Somewhere 50,000 feet below is some Thai rice farmer plodding along in his watered out rice paddy behind some water buffalo. All he gets is the sonic boom as we pass by thousands of feet over his head. I'm watching and it's climbing. I want to see that Mach meter with a number that starts with 2. Increasing speed, increasing speed. Bang, there it is. We're 2 times the speed of sound, 50,000 feet over the ground. I turn west, then south, got to stay within that Thai airspace, zipping along, having a ball. I pull back on the stick again. We're not supposed to go above 50,000 feet. I mean, it's our max altitude by the regulations, but what the hell? I figure I fly combat missions virtually every day, and on the wise advice of my flight surgeon, who told me that at no time should a bullet or shrapnel ever enter my body. So I pull back on the stick. We go through 55,000 feet, coming up on 60,000 feet. Trying to remember, what was it the flight physiologists had taught us? At 63,000 feet, which is coming up on my altimeter, the boiling point of water is 98 degrees. If we lost cabin pressure up here, which is not really an unlikely event, If we lost cabin pressure, our blood would boil within our veins. Our gooses would quite literally be cooked. 63,000 feet, I dare not move around on the throttles right now. With the air as thin as it is up here, these engines have such a narrow space before they go into flame out. So I'm still in full afterburner, and I go ahead and roll her up on her left side and let the nose falls back through now a very round horizon at this altitude. Turning around and heading back down, I try to point the nose back towards Udorn Air Base. Jack is sitting in the back. There's not really much for a navigator to do on a flight like this, but Jack comes along because, like me, he just likes having fun in the mighty Phantom. We are on a glide slope back, passing down through 50,000 feet. I finally pull myself back out of afterburner. I'm in a pretty good military power. I'm still above the speed of sound, however, and I'm pulling back on that stick to try to achieve a 3G descent. And I'm pulling back for all I'm worth, and it's just barely there. Until unconsciousness. Black. A void. Descartes once said that I think, therefore I am. What if I think, but I am not? I literally am in this blackened void. No sensation of vision, no hearing, no feeling. Consciousness with no sensation, no sound. Slowly, ever so slowly, I start to regain some consciousness. Shortly after that, my vision starts to return, but I'm looking through a soda straw down at my lap. And I realize that my chin is on my chest. I can't lift my head. After another moment or two, I can see my hand sitting on a very distant thigh. I know it's my hand because of the big fighter pilot wristwatch I can see in my very tunneled vision. My hand's not on any of the controls. That's when I realized what had happened. Slowly, I start to get some sensation back. I can hear the wind howling outside the canopy somewhere over my head, out in that void that I have no sensation of. But it's coming back. I'm able to lift my head. I'm able to re-grasp the controls. I start to take a look around me. I look out the top of the canopy, and there's Thailand. We're inverted. We're still at altitude though, so I'm kind of safe. So slowly, with what I have in my strength right now, I roll the plane upright, kind of get my wits and my bearing back about me. I take a big, deep inhale of that metallic air coming through my soft rubber mask. "Are you okay, Jack?" I said across the intercom. Jack, in his ever so vocal way, simply replies, "I'm back." I pointed my plane back to Udorn, low on fuel, gliding back home after one of the most interesting functional check flights I've ever flown.
We hope you have enjoyed this Infinite Models presentation.